Can your greatest enemy become your last salvation? When bankrupt artist Qin Yunsui collapsed on the streets, the last person she expected, her childhood rival Lang Ren, paid her $50,000 medical bill. The billionaire who once swore revenge now carries her down mountains at midnight, growling, "You'll repay this debt with your lifetime." From slums to high society, from sworn enemies to forbidden redemption. As their masks crumble, he keeps her decade-old painting of his teenage self. Kitchen light reveals scars matching her sketches. Is this love dressed as vengeance, or a trap woven with lies? Chapter 1. Qin Yunsui rushed through the clamor of the crowd, passing by several open-air food stalls. The aromas of charcoal-grilled mutton and roasted chili peppers intertwined in the air. The stalls were set up outside the storefronts. Groups of 3 or 4 people sat on green plastic chairs, bathed in the yellow glow of overhead lights. The boisterous chatter and laughter created a vibrant scene of everyday life. Qin Yunsui, encountering this scene for the first time, felt as if her heart had been struck by something. She quickly took out her drawing board, and, while the feeling lingered, her hand began to move across the page. Underneath the simple plastic sheds were contained laughter and joy, the aroma of barbecue, and the relaxation of a hard day's work. Qin Yunsui's eyes shone with a peculiar light. Standing beneath a street tree outside the food stalls, though clearly not one of them, she felt a sense of the beauty of life. As she continued drawing, Qin Yunsui felt a gnawing pain in her stomach. She didn't think much of it, assuming her stomach, accustomed to uptown fare, hadn't fully adapted to the new environment. However, in the next second, everything went black. The last thing she heard was someone shouting, "Someone fainted!" She awoke to a sea of white. A nurse was removing an IV needle. Seeing she was awake, the nurse softly said, "You're awake? What happened?" Qin Yunsui noticed she was in a hospital ward. A dull ache emanated from her abdomen. Her gaze quickly found her drawing board, the painting on it half finished. "Appendicitis. It's all taken care of now. Just rest." Qin Yunsui froze, her usually calm and composed face flushed with embarrassment. "I can't pay the medical bills. The hospital certainly wouldn't allow her to run a tab. A very handsome man paid for you. Is he your boyfriend? He was very worried when he brought you in." Qin Yunsui was surprised. A handsome man? Paid her medical bills? Boyfriend? She had fainted on the street. In such situations, they would contact her emergency contact. She had forgotten to change it. It was Qin Ting. Qin Ting was Qin Yunsui's ex-boyfriend and also her half-brother. She had been adopted by the Qin family at the age of 11. The Qin family was wealthy and influential. Legally speaking, adopted children had inheritance rights. So she had only changed her surname to Qin, but hadn't been officially registered in the Qin family household. At 16, she and Qin Ting had become a couple. The Qin family hadn't objected. After a 10-year relationship, they had recently broken up, and she had been kicked out of the Qin family. Thinking of Qin Ting, Qin Yunsui gave a wry smile. Life was truly unpredictable. "In a good mood?" Heard the nurse say someone paid your bill and automatically assumed it was Qin Ting. "Disappointed, aren't you?" Someone pushed the door open, and a cold, sarcastic voice instantly broke into Qin Yunsui's thoughts. Qin Yunsui looked up at the newcomer and chuckled lightly. That was a wry smile. "I was mourning my lost love." The newcomer wore a black overcoat, his waist narrow and legs long. Underneath was a black suit. His sharp, handsome features, which should have been pleasing to the eye, were now filled with scorn in his peach blossom eyes, adding a touch of aggression. Qin Yunsui realized her mistake. It turned out her nemesis had paid the medical bills, so she smiled even more genuinely. In all her years with the Qin family, the thing she had learned best was etiquette. Politely, she said, "Thank you for paying my medical bills." Lang Ren sat down beside her and sneered, "Knowing it's me, are you regretting it now?" "Not really, just surprised." Qin Yunsui gazed at the prickly man before her with clear, cool eyes, confusion and inquiry in her gaze. "Logically speaking, I should be in the top 3 of the people you hate most, right?" Top 3. That was putting it modestly. The handsome man before her was Lang Ren. He had lived in the same neighborhood as the Qin family. Before Qin Yunsui went to live with the Qins, he had been a formidable little tyrant, bullying the young Qin Ting every day. Qin Yunsui, newly arrived at the Qin residence, although a young girl, had grown up amidst the chaos of the streets. The darkness she had witnessed was far beyond what these rich young masters could comprehend. Such a good opportunity to repay the Qin family's kindness was not to be missed. It wasn't long before the little tyrant had lost 2 front teeth thanks to Qin Yunsui. Qin Yunsui had led Qin Ting in a successful revolution, thoroughly suppressing the little tyrant. From then on, Qin Ting had been very good to Qin Yunsui, and from that point, the battles between the two sides had begun, lasting until Lang Ren went abroad for university in his senior year of high school. 3 years ago, Lang Ren had returned, taking over the Lang family business. His first order of business was to suppress the Qin family. And since she had already joined the company at that time, naturally, new and old grudges fueled their clashes. At every social gathering in their circle, Qin Yunsui could see the predatory look in his eyes. It was quite ironic. People really couldn't escape their childhood shadows. Lang Ren, a successful businessman, maintained a veneer of refined elegance, charm, and magnanimity in front of others. But in front of Qin Yunsui, he invariably reverted to the arrogant bully of their youth, his provocations impossible to conceal. And it was precisely because of this that Qin Yunsui was so surprised that he had actually paid her medical bills and hadn't instructed the doctors to perform a lobotomy on her. Hearing Qin Yunsui's question, Lang Ren's expression remained unchanged, the same mocking look on his face. I simply see that you still have some use. Use? Qin Yunsui spread her hands, laughing lightly. With my current reputation, what use could I possibly have? Let me make this clear. Selling my art and myself was too much of a loss before. I've decided from now on to only sell my art, not myself. Though if it's for Mr. Lang, selling myself, not my art, would also be acceptable. Her tone was incredibly relaxed, as if her fall from grace hadn't affected her in the slightest. She could even joke about it so casually. Lang Ren's gaze swept over her pale face, and the sarcastic words he was about to utter died in his throat. His hands unconsciously clenched into fists. With a blank expression, he said, "I need you to help me deal with the Qin family." Qin Yunsui had already guessed as much. She looked at Lang Ren and explained, "Selling my art means selling my paintings, no other services included." Qin Yunsui pulled out her phone. "Let's add each other on WeChat, so it's easier for me to pay you back." Lang Ren didn't take out his phone. He looked at Qin Yunsui, his voice tinged with anger, his gaze like steel blades boring into her. "Even after what Qin Ting did to you, you still want to protect him?" Qin Yunsui laughed. "Mr. Lang, your perspective is quite unique. Everyone out there is saying I'm an ungrateful wretch who single-handedly caused the Qin family stock market crash. How come a Mr. Lang's eyes, it's the Qin family that wronged me." Lang Ren seemed to recall something and scoffed. "Don't go reading all those flattering things about yourself. It'll lower your IQ. Look how stupid you've become." How had words insulting her become praise for her brilliance? Qin Yunsui was amused by this. She had always known he didn't speak properly. He had always spoken this way, but this time, Qin Yunsui found it rather heartwarming. She was actually finding warmth in Lang Ren's sarcasm. Indeed, reading too much of what people said had lowered her IQ. Qin Yunsui opened WPS on her phone, switched to handwriting mode, and wrote an IOU. How much was the medical bill? 366,000. Oh, let's call it 1,000 yuan. 600 yuan for medical expenses, 400 yuan for the favor. After writing the IOU, Qin Yunsui handed her phone to Lang Ren. "Thank you again for paying my medical bill. Is my time so worthless?" Qin Yunsui replied, "Legally speaking, this is a gratuitous act. There's no contractual obligation between us, so I'm not responsible for anything more." Lang Ren, unfamiliar with Chinese law, had no idea he was being bamboozled. He was silent for 2 seconds. Qin Yunsui picked up her bag beside her, looked at Lang Ren, and said, "Let's add each other on WeChat so I can send you this IOU." She paused, then said earnestly, "Thank you for helping me this time. If there's anything else you want, you can tell me." Qin Yunsui looked at Lang Ren, her eyes softening slightly. "We practically grew up together. Qin Ting is my ex-boyfriend, and the Qin family raised me, providing me with food and shelter. I can't help you against them." Lang Ren's gaze lingered on her face for a moment, then fell to the necklace around her neck. "In that case, how about giving me that necklace?" Qin Yunsui looked confused. "That's not possible. It was a gift from Qin Ting when he confessed his love for her at 16. The pampered young master had secretly taken on a part-time job, painstakingly earning 3,000 yuan. It represented the purest affection of a young boy, beautiful as could be. Qin Yunsui had worn the necklace ever since. And because of the pure, passionate love Qin Ting had shown her in their youth, no matter what he did, Qin Yunsui could never truly hate him. Hearing her refusal, Lang Ren's eyes became like a lake suddenly entering winter, freezing over inch by inch. The knuckles of his clenched fists turned white from the force of his grip. He glanced at Qin Yunsui, didn't take her phone, and turned to leave with long strides. Qin Yunsui watched his departing figure, the newly impoverished artist sighing. 1,000 yuan, just like that, gone. Chapter 2. Qin Yunsui left the hospital and returned to her rented room. She lived in a homestay in the south of the city, sharing the house with the landlady and her family. The landlady was a powerful businesswoman who owned several shops and was rarely home. Qin Yunsui was able to rent the room for 600 yuan a month mainly because when asked about her occupation, she mentioned she was a recluse artist who worked from home. The landlady immediately agreed. The landlady had a 70-something-year-old mother, her face covered in wrinkles, her eyes cloudy. She teared up when she smiled, was hard of hearing, and needed to be shouted at to be heard. Only 2 teeth remained, so she mostly gummed her food. Despite her frailty, the old woman was fiercely independent, having loudly dismissed numerous caregivers, believing it was a waste of money to hire someone to look after her. She was quite friendly towards Qin Yunsui because Qin Yunsui was a tenant, someone who paid rent. This allowed Qin Yunsui to rent the large house at a low price, the only requirement being to help look after the strong-willed old woman. After the old woman fell asleep, Qin Yunsui would go out to gather inspiration. During the day, she would paint at home, the old woman sitting beside her, watching intently, as if observing something fascinating. Qin Yunsui lay listlessly on her bed, her body still carrying the scent of hospital disinfectant. She thought of Lang Ren and his words. She was actually quite surprised. Back then, she had run away so quickly, partly because of the Qin family and partly because of Lang Ren. The grievances between them were enough for Lang Ren to kill her many times over. She still remembered the proud and unruly teenager, eyes filled with hatred, gritting his teeth and viciously declaring, "Qin Yunsui, one day, I'll make you kneel before me and repent." Years later, she still remembered those eyes. After all, such a melodramatic person was rare in her life. When they fought, they went straight for it, skipping the trash-talking part. As for dealing with the Qin family, the Qin family had taken her in all those years ago. She had been fed, clothed, attended the best schools, and received the best education. She had no choice. With such immense public pressure, the Qin family actually managed to stabilize the situation. Mr. Li caressed the face of the young woman nestled beside him, looking at Lang Ren. Lang Ren remained silent, drinking glass after glass of wine as if it were water. Finding it strange, Li said, "Old Lang, you've been acting strange these past few days." Lang Ren glanced at him and said indifferently, "No." Still saying no? If I asked you this kind of question before, you wouldn't even answer, just look at me like I was an idiot. Now you're actually answering seriously. I remember your relationship with the Qin family is terrible. Although they've stabilized, they've suffered huge losses. The eldest Qin son even sold himself into marriage. Isn't that something to be happy about? Speaking of which, Mr. Lee remembered something even more interesting and continued. Speaking of which, it's a pity about the eldest Qin son's childhood sweetheart. I met her a few times. She's a real fire rose, captured the hearts of many, and burned the hands of just as many. You know, many people had their eyes on her before, but she remained devoted to the eldest Qin son. Now the Qin family has abandoned her. Mr. Lee sked twice, unclear whether he was sighing or gloating, and continued. Many people in the circle are laughing at her. Just don't know where she went. I heard someone say that she and the eldest Qin son were a couple for 10 years, and even though he's marrying someone else, he's secretly keeping her as a mistress. The original wife turned mistress. The Qin family's actions are truly disgraceful. Mr. Lee recalled the fiery Rose's appearance, seemingly with a hint of regret. Lang Ren didn't seem to register what was said, his face expressionless, his gaze fixed on the wine beside him, his emotions unclear. Qin Yunsui wasn't surprised at being abandoned by the Qin family. Lang Ren thought he would be happy, but when he saw her collapse with her eyes closed, her brows furrowed in fragility, he rushed towards her as if possessed. He couldn't even remember how he got her to the hospital. Lang Ren finished the last glass of red wine and said, "She's not Qin Ting's mistress." Qin Yunsui left the Qin family, fell ill, and couldn't afford to go to the hospital, which meant she wasn't relying on Qin Ting anymore. 3 days after saying this, Lang Ren saw Qin Yunsui and Qin Ting hiking together. Qin Ting carried the easel, and the two walked along the mountain path. Qin Ting wore black sportswear. Qin Yunsui wore red, clearly a couple's outfit, as if the engagement hadn't affected their relationship at all. After reaching the summit, Qin Ting set up the easel for Qin Yunsui. As she began to paint, Qin Ting watched her, the backdrop a vast expanse of lush, uniform forest. Lang Ren stood on the stone steps, expressionlessly watching them. Finally, Qin Yunsui saw him and waved, as if greeting an old friend. Qin Ting stood beside her, seemingly saying something to her. A talented man and a beautiful woman, as well-matched as they always appeared, they formed their own world, everyone else seemingly an outsider. A mountain breeze carried the fragrance of grass and trees. Lang Ren looked away and left. Watching Lang Ren leave, Qin Yunsui thought, as expected, he didn't care about the 1,000 yuan debt. She had originally wanted to find an excuse to separate from Qin Ting, but now she could only suppress the thought. Back in the day, she was despicable, shameless, vulgar, and manipulative. During those years on the streets before joining the Qin family, she had relied on her deviousness to survive. And now, she truly couldn't bring herself to fight anymore. It was completely different from what outsiders imagined. When Qin Yunsui left the Qin family, someone did have a hysterical meltdown, but it wasn't her. From the beginning, she hadn't made things difficult for Qin Ting, even though she had caught him in a compromising position with another woman. But Qin Yunsui didn't care. The Qin family had given her too much. Whether she was thrown out as a scapegoat or her relationship with Qin Ting completely broken, it felt like a debt finally paid off, a numb kind of relief. This didn't mean he could repeatedly disturb her life, using the excuse of if we can't be lovers, we could be siblings. Qin Yunsui felt disgusted. Today, the landlady accompanied her mother to the hospital for a checkup, giving Qin Yunsui time to go out for inspiration. She had only been out for a short while when she ran into Qin Ting. Qin Ting shamelessly followed her, with the air of an older brother. "I'll carry your easel. I can do it myself. Yunsui, you're my sister. Even if we've broken up, I can't treat you as a stranger." Qin Yunsui felt very uncomfortable, but ultimately gave him the easel. "I haven't treated you as a stranger. That's good." Qin Ting carried the easel and continued. "I used to carry your easel for you." Qin Yunsui remained silent. She caught sight of someone in her peripheral vision. All the way to the summit, the person followed at a leisurely pace, not too far, not too close, finally leaving silently. He left in the end. The person's name rolled around on her tongue, but she swallowed it back down. That evening, Lang Ren received a call from an unknown number. A familiar voice came from the other end. It's Qin Yunsui, the one who owes you 1,000 yuan. Are you free now? The voice was accompanied by the howling wind and rustling leaves. She was still on the mountain. No. Lang Ren stood up and lit a cigarette, a feeling of anxiety rising within him. Oh, never mind then. It's late. I shouldn't disturb you. There was a hint of disappointment in her voice. Just as Qin Yunsui was about to hang up, Lang Ren looked out the window at the dark night sky. Beneath that sky, a solitary figure stood, possibly still carrying an easel. He lowered his eyes and slowly said, "After all these years, is there no one you can ask for help?" The person on the other end seemed stunned for a moment, then chuckled softly. The gentle sound, reaching Lang Ren's ears, left a tingling sensation in his heart. Yeah, I'm a failure. There's no one I can ask for help. I'm at the second pavilion on Fragrant Hill. If you don't come, I'll be eaten by wild animals, and then you won't get your 1,000 yuan back. When Lang Ren arrived, the dense plane trees on Fragrant Hill shrieked wave after wave under the onslaught of the strong wind. The night sky was vast, with only a few faint stars. Under their weak light, Qin Yunsui wasn't in the pavilion. She sat on the steps, leaning against the easel, focused on painting. Hearing him approach, she looked up and smiled under the starlight. Her expression relaxed. "I thought you wouldn't come. If you thought I wouldn't come, why call me?" His tone was sharp with irritation. Seeing that he was genuinely angry, Qin Yunsui immediately raised her hands in surrender. "I misspoke. I called you because I was sure you were a good person and wouldn't leave me stranded." Lang Ren walked towards her and said gruffly, "Let's go. I'm only here for the 1,000 yuan. Yes, 1,000 yuan. Enough to buy 2,000 steamed buns." Chapter 3. Qin Yunsui put away her easel and stood up. Only then did Lang Ren notice that she had sprained her ankle, which was already swollen like a steamed bun. Lang Ren glanced at her. She was carrying her easel, preparing to hop down on one foot. She actually dared to hop down these steps, these long mountain steps. "So you call me here to watch you perform a one-leg hop?" Lang Ren grabbed her arm, his tone unkind. Qin Yunsui looked up and laughed. "I was too embarrassed to ask you to carry me, so I was hoping to gain your sympathy with a performance." Lang Ren's face was stern, his voice low and sullen. "Where's the Qin Gidge you're so desperate to protect?" Qin Yunsui raised her eyes, looked at Lang Ren, and said plaintively, "Haven't I been abandoned? Even if I sprained my ankle, even if I were eaten by a wild beast here, he wouldn't care." Lang Ren knew she was being dramatic, but he couldn't bear to leave her. He bent down, preparing to carry her on his back. Qin Yunsui's slender legs wrapped around Lang Ren's waist. Lying on his back, she chuckled softly. "This is the first time someone has carried me. Lang Ren, your Qin Gidge hasn't carried you? When I was little, I stole some steamed buns. The shop owner, to teach me a lesson, hung me up for a whole day. Ever since then, I get scared whenever I lose control of my body." Lang Ren knew that Qin Yunsui was adopted by the Qin family, but he didn't know she had been treated like that as a child. In Lang Ren's mind, Qin Yunsui had always been as fierce as a little wild animal when she was young. He was silent for a moment, then asked, "Which shop?" Qin Yunsui laughed. "I was lying to you. You actually believed me. That's too bad. I was going to send them a banner. It would have said, 'Eliminating harm for the people.'" He didn't know how these words struck Qin Yunsui's funny bone, but she laughed heartily. "I really was a menace when I was little. The night wind was a bit chilly." Qin Yunsui curled up on Lang Ren's back to shield herself from the wind and said intermittently, "I'm actually quite surprised you came to help me. I wasn't very sensible when I was younger. Back then, I had just gone from being homeless to having a home, and I desperately wanted to prove that I was a useful person to the family. I wasn't gentle, and I hurt you. I'm very sorry." The person who had been steadily walking down the mountain steps paused, then said sarcastically, as if I was some kind of good person you could bully back then. "Ha ha, that's true. You really were a little tyrant who thought the world revolved around you. It's a good thing I showed up when I did. Otherwise, you would have been so many people's childhood nightmare." Qin Yunsui recalled the past and said, "Honestly, Fighting with you is quite fun, especially when I had you pinned down. Your face back then, it was so. Likewise, your face felt pretty good to pinch back then, too. As Qin Yunsui was talking, Lang Ren felt a weight on his shoulder. She had fallen asleep. Qin Yunsui's head rested on Lang Ren's strong shoulder, the delicate skin of her cheek unconsciously brushing against the side of his neck, sending a tingling sensation through him. Above them, the night sky was still vast and deep. Originally, it should have been the rustling sound of leaves, but now he could only hear the faint breathing of the person on his back, warm and moist against his skin. Just like that, Lang Ren quietly carried her down the mountain. The towering peaks were immersed in the night, silently watching them leave. Qin Yunsui woke up the next day. Unfamiliar room, unfamiliar scent. Sunlight poured through the window, giving the air a warm touch. Qin Yunsui found herself sleeping on the sofa. Her injured foot had been bandaged. There was a note on the coffee table. Go make yourself something to eat in the kitchen. If you starve to death, remember to write a will. The domineering and arrogant handwriting really suited him, but the content was a bit childish. When Lang Ren returned, he saw Qin Yunsui making instant noodles. Seeing him, she asked, "Want one?" Lang Ren was speechless. There's rice and vegetables in the kitchen. Qin Yunsui smiled ingratiatingly. I don't know how to cook. Do you? Before coming to your place, I'd already eaten instant noodles for 4 days straight. All chicken stewed with mushrooms flavor. No spicy beef flavor. So tragic. This person always knew when to provoke and when to act weak. Lang Ren's face remained stern as he walked into the kitchen, his back looking like he was heading into battle. Didn't you say you used to live on the streets? Qin Yunsui followed him, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Have you ever seen a homeless person with rice and vegetables who can also cook? Qin Yunsui was actually quite surprised that Lang Ren could cook. Not only could he cook, but he was also quite skilled. Not bad. I wouldn't have guessed. You're actually a domesticated house husband. I thought you lived in a detached villa with a dozen people serving you, eating imported steaks, and drinking red wine. The Qin family was like that. A detached villa, a housekeeper, maids, a cook, a gardener. 10 people in total. Lang Ren looked at her. You like that kind of life? Qin Yunsui shook her head. I prefer to live on my own. As she spoke, Qin Yunsui took a pair of chopsticks and tasted the freshly cooked dish. She immediately gave it a thumbs up. Delicious. Lang Ren glanced at her, his expression still unfriendly. You wash the dishes later. Qin Yunsui was completely captivated by the delicious food. No problem. Old Lang, I wouldn't have guessed. Behind the domineering CEO is a domineering chef. I learned when I was abroad, alone. Qin Yunsui. Impressive. The two then ate in silence. Qin Yunsui didn't know why, but she felt particularly relaxed these past 2 days, especially in the face of her former nemesis. It was an unprecedented relaxation. She didn't need to wear any masks, didn't need to please anyone. The other party already knew what kind of person she was. She felt it was a pity. If it weren't for their opposing stances, if it weren't for the deep-seated resentment from the past, they could have become good friends. After dinner, Qin Yunsui washed the dishes and then said goodbye to Lang Ren, who was working in his study. Lang Ren, I'm going back. Thanks for the hospitality. The study was quiet, with no response. Qin Yunsui was about to repeat herself when Lang Ren's cold voice came from inside. Scram. Qin Yunsui didn't mind this. Oh, by the way, the painting is finished. It's for you. Don't throw it away. When I become famous, it'll be worth a lot. Give it to your Qin Gij. You don't need to give it to me. The person inside seemed to be suppressing his anger. All right, then I'll give it to my Qin Gij. Maybe he'll reconcile with me, because I'm a decent painter. Qin Yunsui said half seriously, half jokingly. It was hard to tell if she was being sincere. The person inside only uttered 2 words. Do as you please. Just like that, Qin Yunsui left. The empty room seemed to lose its vitality all at once. After the sound of the closing door echoed, the living room was terrifyingly quiet. Suddenly, there was a bang, as if something had been smashed to the ground in the study. When Lang Ren came out, The first thing he saw was a painting placed by the study door. The painting was of a young boy, his eyes full of defiance, as if nothing in the world could defeat him. The boy, stubborn and a bit naive, looked out at the world from the frame with a challenging gaze. Next to it was a single word, him. That was him as a teenager. Chapter 4. Qin Yunsui felt that Lang Ren treated her well, probably because he valued her connections within the Qin family company. Qin Yunsui felt a little regretful, but she really wasn't planning on interfering with the Qin family's mess anymore. Naturally, she wouldn't contact Lang Ren again. Sometimes, people can truly let go of things. Apart from the Qin family, she didn't have any other relatives or friends. Her landlord had also decided to return to take care of his mother. So Qin Yunsui moved out, shouldered her luggage, turned off her phone, and began her creative journey. Qin Yunsui had only been living like this for a few days when Lang Ren sought her out again. Whenever Qin Yunsui saw Lang Ren, she couldn't help but feel happy. She had a bit of a problem. Every time she was happy, she couldn't resist being a smart aleck. Qin Yunsui looked at him. "Did you give my painting to Qin Ting?" "What did he say?" Lang Ren's face darkened as expected, his eyes blazing as he looked at Qin Yunsui. "You were planning to give my portrait to Qin Ting?" Qin Yunsui sighed, putting on a serious expression. "Wasn't I blinded by love?" The flames in Lang Ren's eyes grew higher and higher. He sneered. "Then let me congratulate you on your wish coming true. Qin Ting has been looking for you like crazy, making a fuss about breaking off the engagement. Do you want to go back now and have your happily ever after? I'll give you a ride and have a celebratory drink along the way." Qin Yunsui was surprised. Qin Ting, that indecisive person, could actually go this far. Seeing her expression change, Lang Ren clenched his fists. His words today were practically squeezed out of his throat. Gritting his teeth, he said, "Are you actually considering it? Is he that good? Good enough to make you lose your mind?" Qin Yunsui met Lang Ren's eyes. There was a rare anxiety and pain in them. His whole being seemed to be in a state of agitation. In all these years, Qin Yunsui had almost never seen him like this. The smile on Qin Yunsui's face vanished. She stopped teasing him and walked over to Lang Ren, wanting to ask him what was wrong. However, the moment she got close, she was embraced. Lang Ren held her tightly, asking fiercely in her ear, "Qin Yunsui, do you even have a heart?" Qin Yunsui looked up and met Lang Ren's eyes. The anxiety was gone, replaced by something that made Qin Yunsui feel as if she had been scalded. A person who feared nothing for the first time didn't dare to meet someone's gaze. She averted her eyes and stammered, "I have a heart. I have a heart. I definitely have a heart. Talk nicely, talk nicely." Lang Ren didn't know what to do. This person didn't care about anything. She talked about Qin Ting all day long, but Lang Ren could feel that if she wanted to, anyone would go crazy for her. Yet she didn't seem to care about anyone. Lang Ren's heart was like an iceberg, and now something that had been buried deep within was exposed, forcing him to confront it. His heart refused to endure this torment any longer. "Qin Yunsui, sometimes I really want to tear out your heart and see if Qin Ting has put a curse on it." At this point, if Qin Yunsui didn't understand, it would be strange. She was surprised. You, I know love can't be forced. You can get back together if you want. Just don't let me see you two together again. The Qin family can't withstand my torment right now." Lang Ren spoke fiercely, yet he still held her, with no intention of letting go. Qin Yunsui had a faint scent of pain on her, making it impossible to let go. Qin Yunsui was like a cat being forcibly held, her whole body stiff. She struggled a bit, but couldn't break free, so she muttered, "You, how can your words and actions be so inconsistent? If you don't let me go, how can I go back to Qin Ting?" Qin Yunsui felt that as long as she faced Lang Ren, she was like a different person. She had to provoke him. As expected, the flames in Lang Ren's eyes were almost materializing, his voice dangerous, as if squeezed out of his throat. "Qin Yunsui." Qin Yunsui responded with an stood on her tiptoes, and pecked Lang Ren's tightly pursed lips like a chick pecking rice. "I'm teasing you." This time, The one stunned into silence was Lang Ren. Qin Yunsui seized the opportunity to slip out of his embrace and stuffed her easel into his arms. Let's go, mister. Lang. Today's the day you bid farewell to your single life. On such a big day, shouldn't we at least make a delicious meal? Lang Ren carried the easel and saw Qin Yunsui walking beside him. Her entire face was red, her eyes shimmering. He had seen her fierce, seen her angry, seen her ingratiating smile, but he had never seen this Qin Yunsui before. Qin Yunsui had acted on impulse and was now equally shy. She looked at the sky, looked at the ground, just not at Lang Ren. The setting sun in the distance shone warmly, and the streets, along with everything around them, seemed to be coated in a warm glow. Qin Yunsui ate a big meal that evening, her stomach so full she couldn't move, lying motionless on the sofa. Seeing her like this, Lang Ren was both amused and exasperated. He reached out to rub her stomach. Qin Yunsui, like a drama queen, widened her eyes. Isn't this too fast? Lang Ren's head was covered in black lines as he pulled her into his arms. I'm rubbing your stomach. What are you thinking? Being held like a rag doll, Qin Yunsui felt extremely uncomfortable and tried to struggle. I also want my stomach rubbed. What are you thinking? These words were powerful, yet Lang Ren saw her ears and neck turn red. His heart felt as if it had been gently scratched by something soft, itchy, and numb. Qin Yunsui settled down, lying on Lang Ren's firm chest, listening to the rhythmic beat of his heart. Qin Yunsui fell asleep. Just like the last time, she could fall asleep quickly leaning on Lang Ren's back. Lang Ren just looked at this person. The more he looked, the more unsatisfied he felt. He slowly lowered his head and carefully kissed the hair of the person in his arms. From a very, very long time ago, his heart had been completely occupied by this heartless person, yet her gaze never fell on him. In his youth, he could only bully Qin Ting again and again to get her attention. He had seen Qin Ting this afternoon. That man who once had everything always stood beside the person he loved with a smug look, reminding him that he could never have her. And now, Qin Ting was drunk and unconscious at a party, calling out the same name. Sui Sui, Sui Sui, as if she was the person he loved most deeply. The scene was extremely awkward, but everyone present was shrewd. Even in such an awkward situation, no one let the conversation die down. Instead, they all praised Qin Ting's deep affection, saying that with so many years of feelings between Qin Yunsui and him, she would definitely return to his side. As if the name Qin Yunsui would forever be linked to the name Qin Ting. At that moment, Lang Ren didn't want to be an outsider anymore. Lang Ren touched the soft hair in his arms. He wanted to possess this person, and he also wanted to be possessed by this person. From his restless youth to this very moment. The next second, Lang Ren saw the necklace on Qin Yunsui's neck and remembered what had happened more than 10 years ago. That year, Qin Yunsui was 16, he was 18, and he had already become aware of his feelings. He knew at that time that Qin Yunsui lacked a sense of security and was afraid of poverty and hunger. He wanted to prove that, without his family, he could still provide her with a comfortable life. At 18, he spent 3 months earning a meager 3,000 yuan and bought a necklace. He wrote her a confession letter and asked to meet her. That day, he waited for 4 hours, but she didn't come. And when he went back, Qin Yunsui was on Qin Ting's arm, the two of them being congratulated by everyone. The ridiculous thing was, Qin Ting had given Qin Yunsui an identical necklace, a necklace with the exact same origin story as his. He watched from not far away, letting all the excitement pass him by. Chapter 5. Lang Ren and Qin Yunsui were together. This news was even more shocking than when Qin Ting and Qin Yunsui broke up, and Qin Yunsui was kicked out of the Qin family. For so many years, whenever the names Qin Yunsui and Lang Ren were mentioned together, the keywords were always confrontation, verbal sparring, and intense rivalry. Yet they were together. Someone had witnessed Lang Ren personally driving to pick up Qin Yunsui. After picking her up, Lang Ren carried her drawing board, and Qin Yunsui held his hand. Their intimate demeanor clearly indicated they were a couple. "Brother Lang, you two are really together?" Mr. Li was embarrassed. After all, he had gossiped about Qin Yunsui in front of Lang Ren not long ago, saying that she had definitely become Qin Ting's mistress, the original partner turned into the third wheel, and so on. Who would have thought that in less than a month, Qin Yunsui not only hadn't become a mistress, but had also successfully won over her former nemesis? Mr. Li gulped. He was Lang Ren's follower, having been with him since childhood. He knew that these two used to fight like cats and dogs whenever they met, without a hint of ambiguity. He still remembered the first time Qin Yunsui and Brother Lang met. She managed to knock out 2 of Brother Lang's front teeth. During that tooth replacement period, Brother Lang didn't speak for 2 months, just stared at Qin Yunsui intensely, and then beat up Qin Ting, resulting in Qin Ting also losing some front teeth. Later, Brother Lang went abroad, and the war between the two sides ceased. After Brother Lang returned, he had become a suave man in a suit. Everyone in the industry praised his gentlemanly and noble demeanor. Qin Yunsui had also blossomed into a fiery rose, every move, every smile, captivating everyone. However, as long as the two met, they immediately reverted to their old ways. Mr. Li felt skeptical. "Brother Lang, are you and Qin, sister-in-law, really together?" Lang Ren, having had a bit to drink, replied, "Could this be fake?" Mr. Li cautiously said, "I'm just afraid she'll trick you again. Given the current state of the Qin family, I'm worried she'll pull the same old tricks. Have you forgotten how she used you for Qin Ting's sake since childhood?" Mr. Li became angry just thinking about it. "I remember clearly that time when Qin Ting clearly provoked us first, but it ended up with Qin Yunsui fighting you until your head was bleeding." Lang Ren's eyes darkened. He didn't say anything, not even knowing what to say. After Lang Ren returned home, he waited a long time, but Qin Yunsui didn't come back. Qin Yunsui had said that even if they were together, they shouldn't interfere in each other's lives. Lang Ren felt that she had been exploited too much by the Qin family and felt sorry for her, so he naturally agreed. Now she hadn't returned. Lang Ren looked at his phone, but still didn't call. However, after a while, he went out. Qin Yunsui's sketching locations had been fixed these past few days. Lang Ren drove slowly along the road, passing by the sounds of people drinking and playing dice at roadside stalls. Finally, at the traffic light at the intersection, he found the familiar figure. Qin Yunsui was carrying her drawing board, and the person standing next to her was Qin Ting. Lang Ren sat in the car, watching them. Watching the two of them chatting and laughing, watching them look at each other. He couldn't hear what they were saying, but he could feel that they were in a world of their own, separate from everyone else. It had always been like this. There was no anger, only waves of exhaustion washing over him. No matter how hard he tried, as long as Qin Ting called her, she would turn back. Lang Ren took out his phone and sent a message. He saw the person over there pick up the phone, glance at the message, and then start typing. Lang Ren quickly received a reply. "Where are you?" "Qin Yunsui. I'll be back soon. I want to eat steamed pork with rice flour tonight." "Okay." Lang Ren was so angry he laughed, replying furiously, "Let's break up." Qin Yunsui's next text came even faster. "Be good. Not being able to make steamed pork with rice flour isn't a big deal. I won't dislike you, huh? Let's have boiled beef tonight." Lang Ren, break up. You can't make boiled beef either? This is a bit serious. We can seriously consider breaking up. Lang Ren was now truly furious. Qin Yunsui's another message arrived. "Just kidding. Are you too tired to cook? I'll bring 2 packs of instant noodles. Let's eat instant noodles tonight. Do you want braised beef or chicken stewed with mushrooms? You should just eat with your ex-boyfriend. I won't be a third wheel. Then get out of the car quickly. The 3 of us can eat together." Qin Yunsui's message came quickly. Lang Ren looked up and saw Qin Yunsui waving at him, smiling radiantly, as beautiful as magnolia blossoms blooming unrestrainedly in spring. Everyone around was captivated by her. Lang Ren got out of the car and walked towards them. Qin Yunsui naturally threw her drawing board at him. "I'm exhausted today." At this moment, Lang Ren noticed the look in Qin Ting's eyes, resentment, jealousy, everything. Qin Ting quickly masked his emotions, smiling and saying, "Mr. Lang, long time no see." Lang Ren just nodded coldly, not speaking. Qin Yunsui was the most normal of the three, saying, "Okay, Comrade Qin Ting, you've also seen my boyfriend. Let me reintroduce him. This is my boyfriend, Lang Ren." Lang Ren saw Qin Ting's pretense completely crumble. Madness appeared in his eyes. Sway, don't be like this. I know you're taking revenge on me. I know I shouldn't have had a relationship with Li Mei. Qin Yunsui remained the same, as if she couldn't understand Qin Ting's pain at all. She said sincerely, No, don't misunderstand. I don't blame you, and I haven't thought about revenge. The Qin family gave me everything, and I'm able to repay them. I'm really happy." Lang Ren used to think he didn't care about anything, always going with the flow. Even Qin Yunsui, who could discuss dinner with him while he was breaking up with her, gave him a headache. But now, he found that when this kind of situation happened to someone else, it was quite satisfying. Lang Ren understood. Qin Ting hoped Qin Yunsui would take revenge on him, hoped she would hate him. Because revenge and hate represent betrayal and love. And Qin Yunsui had none of these. Even though Qin Ting was with someone else, even though Qin Ting betrayed her for the sake of his family, her first reaction was still gratitude towards the Qin family. No revenge, no hate. What Lang Ren could understand, Qin Ting naturally could too. In an instant, his face became extremely ugly. He gritted his teeth and said, "Qin Yunsui, you have no heart." Qin Yunsui looked at Qin Ting inexplicably as he stormed off angrily. Turning back to Lang Ren, she said, "So strange. I'm so good to him, and he actually yelled at me and said I have no heart. Is Qin Ting under too much pressure lately? Look, I protected him since we were kids. When we grew up, I gave up my favorite major and studied business with him. He occasionally hooked up with other girls, and I even helped him cover up and maintain his perfect boyfriend image. Later, when he was about to get engaged to someone else, I shouldered so much and then withdrew. Now that I found someone I like, I even remembered to return the engagement gift he gave me to him. I've been more than benevolent to him, practically deeply affectionate. He actually said I have no heart. He actually said I have no heart. It's too much. I get angrier the more I think about it." Lang Ren had never known that Qin Ting had hooked up with other girls before, nor that Qin Yunsui had helped cover for him. However, someone who had truly loved someone knew what it felt like to love someone. He lowered his head, looking at Qin Yunsui, feeling that her current appearance was more beautiful and dazzling than the sunlight. He deliberately asked, Sway, if I were to hook up with other girls." Before Lang Ren finished speaking, he saw Qin Yunsui looking at him, her eyes dangerous. "I'll give you a chance to rewind and rephrase that question. You'd better think carefully, because your family didn't raise and nurture me." Lang Ren's eyes were like water as he looked at Qin Yunsui. The more he looked, the more he felt that this person was the missing piece in his heart. Qin Yunsui said dangerously, "If you dare to cheat, I dare to chop off your third leg." In this bustling street, amidst the hustle and bustle of the city, he simply watched Qin Yunsui's lips constantly opening and closing. These were the best words he had ever heard. He wanted to kiss her. After venting her anger, Qin Yunsui noticed Lang Ren's gaze. Realizing what he was looking at, she blushed, stood on tiptoe, and quickly kissed Lang Ren. Okay, I definitely don't mean to treat you and Qin Ting differently," Qin Yunsui said with an air of, "I'm doing this for your own good. I'm so excellent. No wildflower outside can be as fragrant as me. See? Qin Ting already regrets it." Lang Ren smiled. He understood Qin Yunsui. He knew she was insecure, knew she always used jokes to express her true feelings. Her possessiveness towards him was real. Lang Ren hadn't been this happy in a long time. He even felt a bit of sympathy for Qin Ting. Qin Yunsui, who was walking ahead, suddenly turned around. "By the way, do you really not know how to make steamed pork with rice flour and boiled beef?" Lang Ren looked at Qin Yunsui. "Don't tell me you're with me, because I can cook." Qin Yunsui nodded. "Of course that's the reason. Otherwise, wouldn't I be lusting after your body?" Qin Yunsui wrapped her arms around Lang Ren's waist as she spoke. I'm not lusting after your abs, not lusting after your handsome face. I'm not that shallow. Qin Yunsui really loved teasing this person. When they were young, she liked to bully him and watch him make that the world is trash, only I'm supreme kind of Chinibu expression. Later, she liked to see him get angry, but unable to do anything about it. And now, she was keen on making him show more expressions. Not far away, Qin Ting watched the backs of the two as they walked away. He held the engagement gift he had given to Qin Yunsui in his hand. The cold touch of the necklace reminded him of many things. In high school, Lang Ren and Sui Sui had reconciled for some reason. He had been uncomfortable with it at the time, but what he hadn't expected was that Lang Ren was actually planning to confess to Sui Sui on her birthday. Qin Ting did something he couldn't distinguish between right and wrong for the rest of his life. He inexplicably copied Lang Ren's confession method. Sure enough, Qin Yunsui got together with him. At that time, he thought he would be good to this person for the rest of his life. But now, as he watched the two walk away, the atmosphere between them, he had never had that, not even when they were young. Every fight and argument between Qin Yunsui and Lang Ren was vivid and real, completely different from when she was with him. Qin Ting suddenly realized that he had never truly possessed this person. In an instant, he lost all his strength.